Hello and welcome to another episode of Go Ballistic, the summer of transfer specials. And as always, at this time of the week, we are going to have a focus on Rangers. And my goodness, how busy a week has this been as far as Rangers have been concerned, Roger. The deals have been coming in thick and fast. Russell Martin saying on Sunday after Club Brugge game that his squad is going to look pretty different within a week or two. So let's start with a player that could be on the way in, a SunSport exclusive over the weekend. Jesurun Rak-Sakyi, the Crystal Palace winger. What do we know about this one?
Well, there's a genuine interest there from Rangers. They're looking at wide players. Every week we've done this, Jonathon. We've spoken about a potential replacement for Czerny, who left in the summer. Rak-Sakyi did well at Sheffield United last season. Palace value him about £10 million. So I think there's a bit of negotiations to be done there. I think if he goes out, Sheffield United come up. Sheffield United would have paid £10 million and taken him. They didn't come up, so he's now back at Palace. £10 million is a bit too rich for Rangers, and if they get him on loan, great. I think if Palace insisted on an obligation to buy or something like that, that may be a sticking point. You know, the Rangers get caught out with that with Oscar Cortez last season, so big interest. It'll be interesting to see if they can add him to the squad. You think there's been a lot of moves in the last week? Just wait to see the next couple of weeks, I think.
And as you mentioned there, Roger, we've talked about this position, the wing position at Rangers. I think Sunday's game shows there is not a lot of depth there.
No.
They need to get something sorted here pronto, don't they, with this Champions League game just a couple of weeks away.
Sunday's game showed there's not a lot of depth anywhere.
True.
If you're starting a central defence of Robin Proper and Leon King, that shows that you need adjustments in that area. But I think by the time Rangers play Panathinaikos, by the time Rangers kick off in the Premiership, by the time the Old Firm game comes round on the 31st of August, I think you could see as many as 9 changes from the side that started against Club Brugge.
The only player to play the full game on Sunday was Finlay Curtis, obviously just 18 years old. Russell Martin seemed very impressed with him, seems an ambitious young man as well. Do you think he can have a big role to play this season?
Well, it's a strange thing to say. It's up to Finlay Curtis, because all a manager can do is give the lad a chance. You know, some players take it. I'm thinking back to Nathan Patterson, get into the team, took his opportunity, went for a lot of money. Other players have had opportunities and haven't taken them. Leon King, Adam Devine, Cole McKinnon, Zach Lovelace, people like that have all had a little side to the first team and not kicked on. So really, it's down to Finlay Curtis. Russell Martin did a great job at Southampton with Tyler Dibbling, who's now been spoken about in excess of £50 million
money,
down there. So if he can get even a fraction of that performance out of Finlay Curtis, then it'll be a major boost for Rangers, and it'll be a major boost for the lad himself. And, you know, I'm a great one. You like to see young Scottish players coming through everywhere, but especially at the Old Firm clubs.
A lot of the players you mentioned when you were talking there have left Rangers, you know, likes of Adam Devine.
Yeah.
A couple of the players around that same sort of age group that remain. One of them you mentioned, Leon King, and another winger, Ross McCausland. He obviously made an appearance as well on Sunday. Do you think those will be 2 players that are likely to move on this summer? There's certainly interest in King at the moment being reported.
I think there'll be a bundle of players. I think King could go. I think Robin Proper could go back to the Netherlands. I think McCausland could go. I think Jose Cifuentes will probably go again. I think Robbie Matondo will probably go again. Be interesting to see who else. You know, Ridvan Yilmaz, he's lost his number 3 jersey to Max Aarons. I don't know whether I'm reading too much into that, but there's been speculation almost from the moment he came here, Jonathon, he's going to go back to Turkey. Neither him nor Jeffrey has really nailed that position down. Could there be a left back yet to come in?
We'll move on to centre back now, where that looks where the new recruit. The next one is going to come in. Nasser Djiga, another name that surfaced after we spoke last week. Obviously, this would be a second move for him in just 6 months. Only moved to England in January. What do we know about him as a player? What are Rangers getting here?
Well, he's big. He's uncompromising. He's a Burkina Faso international. He seemed to impress at Red Star Belgrade. And that's what won him the move to Wolves. He didn't really kick on after coming in January. Only got half a dozen appearances, I think, in the English Premier League, which is a step up from the Scottish Premiership. He's now going to take a step back to Rangers. I think Conor Coady could arrive as well. John Souttar's close to fitness. Emmanuel Fernandez is already in. So that could really push the exit door open to Proper and to King. And the way the manager spoke on Sunday to Clinton and Ciala as well.
We'll get on to him in just a sec. But as far as the Djiga is concerned, Wolves paid £10 million for him in January. He's only 22. He's got a contract running until 2030. So I take it what we're looking at here will probably be a straight loan, and that'll be that. It looks unlikely maybe that'll be one Rangers could look at the long term.
I would imagine so. It would be a straight loan. It will work for Wolves because he gets to play some more experience of British football, if you like. He's still a young man in central defensive terms. It gets the boy playing. He's better coming here and playing 40 games for Rangers than sitting on the bench for Wolves. And if he does well, then it's a shop window and Wolves can maybe either take him back or sell him on elsewhere.
You mentioned there he's a big lad, 6'4".
Yeah.
Manuel Fernandes come in as well. Similarly, quite an imposing figure, tall, physical. Do you think Rangers have addressed a real need in that area by signing this profile of player compared to what they had before?
I mean, there was that, criticism levelled at Proper that he wasn't physical enough and he couldn't stand the rigours of the Scottish Premiership. So I don't think you could level that at either Fernandes or Djiga. They're certainly big, they're physical. They'll probably have, limitations in other departments, if you like, but it'll be interesting to see how they get on. And
just going back to Cyriel that you mentioned there, a player that Martin's pretty much made clear is not going to be in his plans. Quite harsh, maybe, in a way, what he had to say on Sunday.
I don't know, John. When he first came into the team last season, he looked okay. He then hit a dip. I think Barry Ferguson brought him back in the latter stages of the win at Celtic Park, and again, he did okay there. He's obviously had a look at him and just thought he's not quite what he wants at the minute. So it's about, Wolves are loaning out Djiga to get him football and improve him and maybe take him back. Wouldn't surprise me if Rangers did something similar and sent Cyriel somewhere, get him football, get him a bit more experience, and then have a look and see how he's progressed.
So you don't think this is the door closed?
I don't know. We could record this morning and he's sold at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. For now, he's not Russell Martin's cup of tea.
And just one last mention on the defence before we move on. Conor Coady, obviously player that's been talked about all summer. He's back in training with Leicester. We've seen him back at pre-season training. Feels this one hasn't moved on too much, but you still think this one could be a goer?
I think it will be a goer. Leicester have gone down. They need to save some money. They need to appoint a manager. It just feels the right time for Conor Coady to leave Leicester. I think there's going to be a change in the guard. Jamie Vardy's left. Other key players have left as well. And I think there's been too much chatter around this story for it not to be right. Wouldn't surprise me. I read his very touching tribute at the weekend to his former Wolves teammate Diogo Jota. He was clearly and understandably, dreadfully upset by the passing of Diogo and his brother in that terrible accident last week, Jonathon. I think he has now returned to training at Leicester, and I just wonder now he's back, getting football back in his mind, if this might be the week for the deal to go through.
We'll watch that one closely. The last deal that has gone through, Saturday, Rangers got Tello Asgard in the door, yet another name that wasn't really on the radar until the latter point of last week. Do you like the profile of player here? Again, he kind of fits that sort of age group that Rangers are looking at.
It's been a sort of strange year for him. He's a Norwegian international, but he's born and raised in Liverpool. He came through the Liverpool Academy, didn't make it. There's no shame in that. He went to Wigan. He actually shone under Sean Maloney, who's now back at Celtic. Earned his move to the English Championship to Luton. Luton subsequently relegated. They're another team trying to get some money in because they're down in League One. Asgard, having done well, was obviously a prime asset to sell. Rangers have come in to take him. Russell Martin knows a lot about him. He's seen a lot of him. So he's got the profile, 23 years of age. I think Ståle Solbakken, the Norway manager, was keen for him to play at a much higher level than England's third tier. So he backed him to go to Rangers. And there are now a few players, creative players in there. I like the look of Lyle Cameron. I've always liked Lyle Cameron, and I hope he doesn't get lost in among all of this. The other new signing, because he's not a Russell Martin signing. Of course, he was a Philip Clement signing in that pre-contract. I would like to think there's some role there for Lyle Cameron as another young Scot.
Yeah, we'll see. Also, Lyle Cameron dealing with a bit of an injury that meant he couldn't appear at the weekend. In terms of Asgard, the sort of type of player he is, do you think he is somebody that could potentially help out in those wider positions if needed as well?
Listen, he's a slightly different player, but you see him coming in and maybe matching the impact that Benjamin Nygren's going to have at Celtic, because Nygren can play anywhere across the area. He can play up top, he can play in behind, he can play wide. You can see Asgard, doing any of those things. It was interesting to see the exact formation that Russell Martin starts the season with. You know, he's not married to a 4-2-3-1 or a 3-5-2 or a 4-3-3. He can be flexible. And if you've got flexibility with your formation, it's good to have versatile players like Asgard there who could play anywhere across the front line.
And we'll just touch on the other midfield signing Rangers made last week, Joe Rothwell, who Ryan Rowe had basically predicted would have signed for Rangers here a few weeks ago.
Even a broken clock's right twice a day.
I was going to say, if any Rangers fans want to just comment some names they'd like to sign, get Ryan to shout them when he's
Ryan
back
Rowe's
here next week. You never know what can happen. Please do that, actually. It'll be interesting to see. But also that one was moving as we were speaking last week. I think by the end of the day, was it?
Yeah.
The deal had pretty much gone through. This is a player Russell Martin clearly likes, isn't it?
It is, and it's one he trusts. A bit like Max Aarons, you know, you find managers doing that quite often. There's, you know, 2 or 3 players that they go back to and they just feel comfortable with. And I think Rothwell is that player for Russell Martin. But interesting is he'll probably anchor the midfield. You could see him in a 3 with Diamande or Raskin. Not sure what that means immediately for Conor Barron, albeit he did have the captain's armband against Bruges at the weekend. So if the Panathinaikos game was tomorrow, you would think it would be Rothwell, Raskin and Diamande in there, with maybe Asgard, Dessers and Igamane further on. The one area now needs the priority is that central defensive area you spoke about, Jonathon.
And the added sort of thing with Rothwell as well is that he wants to play for Scotland.
Yeah.
But that's...
To be fair, so did I, and it never happened.
Well, true. not yet.
Well,
Same with Joe, the two of you. You know, you never know. That's going to be a tough midfield to break into for anyone, though, isn't it, as far as Scotland goes?
Listen, Conor Barron just won a first cap there at the end of last season. He's got ambitions. You know, if you read Robert Greaves' interview in the Scottish Sun yesterday, Luke McCowan at Celtic was talking about his international ambitions. You've then got Gilmer and McTominay, you've got McGinnon, Christie, you've got a whole heap of players in there. Lennon Miller impressed at the end of the season, so I think it'll be tough for Joe to get in there.
And you're going through the potential lineup there as it would stand just now. Dessers and Igamane, 2 players you mentioned that would be leading the line. So much talk about them. They're still both Rangers players. Russell Martin talking about them both on Sunday, saying a bid was rejected for Dessers. He's not personally heard anything with regards to Igamane. What's going to happen with these 2 players? Does anyone actually know just now?
I think, you know, Russell Martin seemed very calm about the whole situation. If Russell Martin needs to start the season with Dessers and Igamane, I don't think it would break his heart. Like any player in Scottish football, they have a price that they'll be sold for. Not a player in Scotland who doesn't have a price. AEK Athens haven't met the price for Dessers. Lille, a lot of talk in France last week that Lille want Igamane, but they haven't made a bid yet. If they bid what Rangers deem to be acceptable, those players will be sold. And then Russell Martin will need to find the replacements. But as of now, they're Rangers players. And Russell Martin seems quite cool with that. And to be honest, Jonathan, if you were standing with a blank sheet of paper addressing Rangers' problems at the minute, Dessers and Igamane wouldn't be near the top of that list of problems, I don't think.
Absolutely not. And you mentioned if they were to move on, they'd be looking at replacements. Dor Turgeman's a name that hasn't gone away. We obviously spoke a few weeks ago about the potential difficulties with that deal with regarding what's going on in Israel and stuff. But he is a player that's still on Rangers' radar, isn't he?
He's a player that's still on Rangers' radar. He is. The striking thing is a strange one. I said in this show a few weeks ago, I thought they should have gone to Lawrence Shankland just to give them a little bit more depth. They haven't done that. He signed a 3-year deal to stay at Hearts. And while we've seen lots of players, Djiga, Coady, Fernandez, you know, all linked, and we've seen players in attacking areas. Asgard's arrived, Rak-Sakyi, Rangers want to bring in. Other than Turgeman, we've not seen a million centre forwards linked with Rangers.
Not at all.
It's many centre forwards linked with Celtic. There's, you know, Ambrosino, I can't even say it, Ambrosino and Yamada both linked again this morning in the Scottish Sun. There's not been a lot linked with Rangers. That makes you think they maybe think that Dessers and Igamane will stay.
Potentially. One name that does keep appearing is Jamie Vardy. We keep seeing that all over the place, these links. It's coming out from all over. Yeah. There was one in Italy this week that had mentioned Rangers in relation to Jamie Vardy. Do you see him as a genuine Rangers target this summer?
No. I just don't. I think Jamie Vardy's an excellent player. Jamie Vardy has been outstanding for 15 years. He has won everything with Leicester. He's scored 200 goals in 500 games. He has kept himself as fit as a butcher's dog. He's 38. He will play again somewhere next season. I actually, when the link came, I thought, yep, you could see that happening. But my understanding is it's not going to happen. Jamie Vardy will get a decent club because he's still a good player, but it won't be Rangers.
There we go. Thought we'd better address that one because it literally seems to be everywhere you look at the moment.
There you
But
go.
there we go. I think that will do us for this week, Roger. As I said, it'll be Ryan Rowe, Mystic Ryan, returning here next week with your good self. So, as I said, see what players, Rangers fans will want to sign. Can try and make it happen.
Marvellous.
Don't forget, lots of good content across the Scottish SunSport YouTube channel, including, speaking of Ryan, his great Cult Heroes interview with former Killeen Morton favourite Alan Mahood. So go and check that out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Celtic transfer special back here later this week. And as mentioned, the next Rangers one, same time next week on Tuesday. Catch you then.